All right, welcome. Today, we're diving into what is honestly one of the most satisfying parts of programming. It's that magic moment when all that abstract Java code you've written suddenly becomes something real, something you can actually see, and more importantly, something a person can click on. We're going to go on a journey from pure code to actual clicks. And it really all comes down to this one simple question, right? How does a line of code, just text in a file, transform into a button on your screen? How do we build that bridge between the logic humming away in the background and a graphical interface that a user can actually interact with? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down. So, making our code tangible, that's the goal. And we do that through UI implementation. This is the craft of building the screens, the menus, all those interactive bits and pieces that let a user actually use your application. It's the point where all your hard work finally meets the user. And thankfully, we've got some amazing tools to make this process way easier. To make this all feel a bit more concrete, we're going to zero in on a specific tool you can use right inside Eclipse. It's called Window Builder. The best way to think of it is as a visual drag-and-drop designer. It seriously simplifies creating a UI, and it saves you from the headache of having to write every single positioning coordinate out by hand. Now, how do you get it? Well, if you're working in a school or university lab, there's a really good chance this thing is already installed for you. But if you're on your own computer, it's super straightforward. You just pop open the Eclipse Marketplace from the Help menu, type in Window Builder, and just follow the installation prompts. It slots right into your existing setup. So, you've got the tool installed. Where in the world do you start? You start with the rules of the space. In the Java UI world, we call these rules layout managers. And honestly, the best way to think about them is this. They are like the rules for arranging furniture in a room. They tell your application exactly how and where all your components are going to be positioned. When it comes to arranging that furniture, you've got two main philosophies. On one side, you have absolute layout. This gives you pixel-perfect control, and it feels really intuitive at first. You just drag a button and drop it exactly where you want it. But here's the catch. The second a user resizes that window, everything breaks. It's a mess. That is exactly why we almost always prefer adaptive layouts. They're way more flexible and can gracefully adjust to different screen sizes. So let's look at the three big ones you'll run into. Flow layout is the simplest. It just puts things in a row, like words on a page, and wraps to the next line when it runs out of room. Then you've got grid layout. This is perfect for anything uniform, like a calculator keypad, because it creates this perfect grid of equal-sized cells. And finally, border layout. This one is a classic for application design. It gives you 5 distinct regions: north, south, east, west, and center. Perfect for toolbars, status bars, and the main content. Okay, so we've got our rules for arranging the room. Now let's talk about the actual furniture itself, the interactive building blocks of our UI. And this is where two key concepts come into play: JPanels and JComponents. Let's start with JPanel because it's a fundamental idea. Think of it as a mini canvas, just a blank rectangular space that acts as a container. You can put buttons and labels on it, sure, but here's its real superpower. You can put JPanels inside of other JPanels. Each one can have its own layout rules, which lets you build incredibly complex and organized interfaces piece by piece. And to keep all this straight in your head, this analogy is perfect. The J-frame is the whole house. That's your main application window. Inside the house, you place JPanels, which are like the individual rooms. And then inside each room, you arrange your JComponents. And that's the furniture, the buttons, text fields, and all the stuff the user actually interacts with. And here's a quick look at that furniture. This is your bread and butter, the components you're going to use all the time. You've got J buttons for actions, J text fields for when the user needs to type something, J combo boxes for drop-down menus, J tables for showing data. These are your essential building blocks for pretty much any interface you can imagine. So let's recap. We've designed our rooms with layout managers, and we've placed our furniture, our components. But right now, it's just a static display. It looks nice, but it doesn't do anything. The next step is to actually bring it to life by making it respond to the user. And this is all about event handling. So how do we make it respond with an event listener? You can literally think of it as a dedicated piece of code whose entire job is to just sit there and listen for a very specific user action. When the user finally clicks that button or types in a field, an event happens, and the listener wakes up and triggers your code to do something in response. Now, you can have listeners for almost anything. Mouse movements, resizing the window, you name it. But I'll be honest, the one you're going to use 95% of the time, especially when you're starting, is the action listener. It listens for the main action of a component. For a button, that's a click. For a text field, it's hitting the enter key. It is the absolute workhorse of UI interactivity. A really big part of a good user experience is giving people clear and immediate feedback. And for simple pop-up messages, confirmations, or asking for a quick bit of text, Java gives us an incredibly useful tool called JOptionPane. It saves you from having to build a whole new window for every little interaction. It basically comes in 4 main flavors. You've got show confirm dialog, which is perfect for those "are you sure" kind of questions. There's show input dialog for when you just need to get a little bit of text from the user, like asking for their name. Show message dialog is your go-to for just telling the user something, like save complete. And finally, show option dialog gives you a ton of flexibility to create custom pop-ups. These things are massive time savers. So let's just pull this all together for a second. You have layouts to arrange the space, you have panels to create organized containers, you have components, all that interactive furniture, and you have listeners to make it all work when the user does something. You officially have all the essential building blocks you need to go from code to clicks. And that really brings us to the final and maybe most important idea here. This isn't just about knowing the technical pieces. It's about designing an experience. So think about an application you use every single day. How would you combine these building blocks, maybe a border layout with a nested grid layout inside of it, to build the perfect tool for what you need? The real magic happens when you start combining these pieces creatively to build an interface that isn't just functional, but feels truly intuitive to use.